The show is starting.
Now beware, have a care, you're just filled with air. A single pin would rip your skin, and the pin-cushion man in the forest there would pop you both if you don't take care.
All such trash, in the flash, I will settle his hash. I'll bust right in and twist his chin. I'll get rough, I'll get tough, I'll just call his bluff.
Oh no, please don't go.
Oh, come on.
I'm coming. I'm scared.
I'm not much. Oh!
I'm the old pincushion man, terror of Balloony Land. Folks all hate me, how they hate me, tickles me the way they rate me. Always have a pin at hand, that's the reason I am panned. How I stop 'em when I pop 'em.
Oh, that pincushion man's a fake. I'm not afraid of his pins.
So you're not afraid of pins? Let me in! Let me in! I'll get mad in a minute. Open the gates! I want to come in!
Oh, I'd better not. The folks would blow up if I let you in.
Nonsense. I'm your friend. I want to give you something.
Oh, that's different. What are you going to give me?
This!
You ne-
The pincushion man! Quick, we must sound the alarm. Cushion Man!
Holy smoke! Ready? Aim, fire!
Contact!
Fire!
In an old house, there is always listening, and more is heard than is spoken. And what is spoken remains in the room, waiting for the future to hear it. And whatever happens started in the past and presses hard on the future. The agony in the curtained bedroom, whether of birth or of dying, gathers into itself all the voices of the past and projects them into the future. The treble voices on the lawn, the mowing of hay in summer, the dogs and the old pony, the stumble and the wail of little pain, the chopping of wood in autumn, the singing in the kitchen, and the footsteps at night in the corridor, the moment of sudden loathing and the season of stifled sorrow, the whisper, the transparent deception, the keeping up of appearances, the making the best of a bad job, all twined and tangled together, all are recorded. There is no avoiding these things, and we know nothing of exorcism, and whether in Argos or in San Francisco, there are certain inflexible laws, unalterable in the nature of music. There is nothing at all to be done about it. There is nothing to do about anything. And now it is nearly time for the news. We must listen to the weather report and the international catastrophes. T.S. Eliot.
What you see before you is a show about questions. It is about puzzles and conundrum, enigma and riddles. What would you ask, you may ask, and this is what I will now seek to explain. Deep in your psyche, questions exist that no mortal has dared to utter. Some hunger in the fabric of your being that must be fed. We seek the wild questions of your mind that roam untamed by the intrusions of the outside world. The questions that you bring here today will provide you answers and perhaps even insights. A veritable cornucopia of possibilities exist. Before you lies a gateway into instant access to the answers that puzzle and mystify the human mind. We are not interested here, however, in questions of a mundane nature. We seek the questions that have no answer, for Dr. Hal possesses the knowledge that can only be drawn from a life steeped in classic, esoteric, and underground resources. Dr. Hal will, especially with lubrication provided by generous offerings, be your source and guide to the panoply and myriad wisdoms to be found in the more exotic realms of thought. To invest in your wisdom, monetary donations may be submitted to our tip jar website, which is being displayed at the bottom of the screen. Questions may be asked directly on this site and will be read on the show. You may also pledge a love offering in our audience chat, and our ever-present stage ghost will forward you a link to Dr. Hal's tip jar. It will be my responsibility to present your question as well as your love offering to Dr. Hal, who will then expound upon it in a way that only Dr. Hal can. Especially good questions, or ones that we feel are worthy in a more monetary way, may receive a special recitation from Dr. Hal himself. So get those questions and love offerings into Dr. Hal so that we can drain his brain for the betterment of all Yeti kind. Wait, checking to make sure my microphone's on. It is. It is. Hey, Dr. Hal.
Perhaps I should just keep babbling like the new species of babbling bats that have been discovered that babble consistently and continuously. They seem to have a vocal language divided into many syllables. It was just reported in today's newspaper. So am I coming in?
You are. You are coming in loud and clear.
All right.
You are in the pipeline 5 by 5.
Save the babbling bats for later, too.
Oh, babbling bats. That sounds like fun.
Yes.
All right, well, in any event, one of us had to have our microphone turned off for the opening of the show. So since I had mine turned on, I had yours turned off. So it's tradition.
Did my poem come through?
It did.
Oh, well,
it did. That was fine. People didn't complain until we started this particular scene, so it was...
They might complain if it did come through, but I'm happy to be here and ready to receive your question.
Very good. Well, I wanted to remind the audience that this is the Ask Dr. Hal show. So we do this by you asking Dr. Hal questions, and Dr. Hal will answer them. As we said in that video previously, we're not looking for the mundane questions. We don't care about 1959 Cadillacs and all that stuff that you can Google. We want to hear what's deep in your soul, those questions that just tear at you, that keep you up at night, that make you want to go on and keep hearing more stuff. So let's hear your questions. You can get those out to our Ko-fi site. That's kofi.com/askdrhal. You can also put them into our chat, and our lovely stage ghost, St. Joyce, will get those questions over to me. So, moving smartly forward. Dr. Hal, let me check our queue here real quick. I do have a question that you can start on, though, while I do that process, and it is, this is an anonymous question, and it is for $9, and it says, the question is, please speak freely upon the theme of the ship of Theseus. Thank you.
Well, this is from the last show, was it not? But what did I say then? I said that the ship of Theseus must set out over the critical ocean and not be drawn under by eddies, currents, maelstroms, and undertows, which are the hallmark of jealousy in the academic world. It pervades there as it does everywhere else. And in the current age of calumny, started by the odious Newt Gingrich, this has penetrated even into the supposedly sacrosanct world of science and the arts. So as long as one manages to steer around or above these controversies unworthy of its proud and proudly emblazoned name, the ship of Theseus should reach its idealized port, which is in the receptive dimension, where others may unload its cargo and depend upon it to make further and future voyages. And a question of my own would be, didn't we have this question, the same one last time? Perhaps the answer was inadequate then, and perhaps the answer was inadequate now. We hope not. But of course, all we promise is an answer, and hope that the answer we give is above all entertaining and also perhaps even thought-provoking.
Perhaps Anonymous just wanted to test you.
Well, that's totally fair.
Well, I hope they are satisfied. We are waiting for the queue to fill up here, Hal. Audience, please get your questions to us. Let me do a quick refresh here and see what else I have in our queue for questions. We do not have anything else in our queue yet. So audience, get your questions into us. Dr. Hal, what I'm going to do is later in the show, I was planning on sending you a question from Reverend Chuck Canuck. But since we're waiting for our queue to fill up, if you don't mind, I'm going to play that video question for you now. Would that be satisfactory?
Yes, let's do it. We are, of course, completely in accord with our friends north of the American border. Only a few Canadians.
All right. Well, in any event, here comes the question.
Greetings, Dr. Hal from Toronto, Ontario. I'm asking your advice on how I can break into voice acting. I've done some of the conventional type. Here's a clip.
They rehab killer Tateness, wanting us to lie and die. Says I. This brother's for rare. He's gonna put it out there. If anyone out there cares, speak out.
Get that shit out of my face, Cash.
Yo, is this where they're giving out the free gold? In the pig, let's get it! Get that pig! Wait, Did you say that this was going to an animal shelter where you help the furry little creatures?
Yes, that's right.
Count us in.
Oh, thank you. Oh, here, me too.
Here. Whoa. Same here. I can always spare some buckaroos to help the little animals.
Oh.
So I'd like to know how you broke into the biz and what advice you might have for me to market myself. Thanks.
Well, most interesting. The question from Reverend Chuck Canuck was, how does one break into the voiceover or voice acting biz? It is a biz, and many are trying to get in there. And it is one of those things, like, how do you get a Screen Actors Guild card? Well, you just have to be in a movie. But how do you get into a movie? Well, you have to have a Screen Actors Guild card. Or you have to have the AFTRA card, the American Federation of Radio and Television Artists. But I'm sure that stuff doesn't apply in Canada anyway. And of course, it is circular. It contains the catch-22. How did I do it? Well, I was already a performer, and I had been doing announcements of my own. I'd been on the radio before I ever came out to California, and this sort of thing enables you to make recordings or samples of what you've done. The most important thing to do, and this may be too simple to satisfy as an answer, is to make a demo. It used to be a demo tape. It is, I think now, not even a demo CD, but a demo doodad, which you stick into a computer or something like that. But you must make that, and it must very quickly demonstrate the superiority of your presentation and the clarity of your voice. The ability to do specialty voices is a great thing and a necessary thing. But in my experience, what they're looking for are not crazy specialty voices, though they will appreciate that you can do them, particularly if they can be understood. What they seem to be looking for, and what people who have made their money in voiceover are able to provide, is a voice that somehow convinces the client that you are the voice of the average Joe lunch pail, man in the street, that you are the not too bright but easygoing guy who likes to kick back with a beer and so on. Of course, there is no such voice, but you must convince the client that there is and that you are it, with a slight amount of humor, but always remember to keep it clear and easy. And if they like that, then you can try the old man voice, the monster voice, the dwarf voice, the giant voice, anything that you can get from augmentation. It is attractive to the client if they don't have to augment you. If you can just open your mouth and out of it will come the voice that you need. When I recorded the part of Tinker for Dota 2, the game Defense of the Ancients 2, I think that's what it stands for. They were going to augment me and turn my voice into a little elf voice. But I said, well, before you do that, just let me see if I can do the voice. And I did it then and there, which pleased them because expensive studio time was not required. Cost is also with them of paramount importance. But make your demo as long as you need to highlight all the things that you can produce. Still, at the beginning of it, you must emphasize clarity and universality. Aside from that, all I can say is put yourself forward at every opportunity and make multiple copies of your demo reel or tape or CD or thing that you stick into your computer. I know it's not good voice to say the way to do it is just to do it, but you have to do it and then see if they want it. And you have to be flexible, ready to roll. It seems like you, Reverend Chuck Canuck, are already part of the way there, which is encouraging and should encourage you as well. Well, I don't really have anything to add. Are there more questions?
We're getting a couple in the queue. I'm reading one now in chat from apostrophe X Nord, and it's Dr. Hal. How does a ICOAN apostasy? What I'm not sure what that is. Dr. Hal, how does an OAN
venomously right-wing One America network, perhaps?
Yes,
but what's the whole question?
How does an OAN artist know that they have made it?
Well, then it's probably not the One America News thing.
Not from APO Stacy.
One America News, then it would be, you know, you've made it when you are next quoted by Tucker Carlson or people of that ilk, with an emphasis on ilk. Because the strategy there is to say something and then refer to it as veracundial because it has been said. But perhaps OAN means something different, and I am momentarily without the ability to go to the slang lookup online, which tells you what all of these sometimes confusing initials actually stand for.
I can solve the puzzle right now. She just got back to us in chat, and the O was extra. That we've way complicated this puzzle. It's how does an artist?
All right. Well, let's have that question again and forget the One America News Network. How does an artist do what now?
How does an artist know that they've made it?
Oh, made it. I wonder in what way. I mean, I often wondered, am I at the peak of my ability, which will only dwindle, or am I up at the top of my cycle where I care to put my stuff out by the public? After a while, I believed that this was so, or was able to convince myself that it was so. But of course, practice makes perfect. And if one does not practice, one is not at the peak of one's ability. Though one may make it, that is to say, achieve recognition when something which you consider infamous that you've done some time ago catches up by somehow getting, through the magic hand of chance, into public notice. Of course, you must present your wares to the public or to whoever might be receptive constantly in order for this to happen. Something like dangling a fishing line into a lake which may or may not be tenanted by fish. Plenty of samples that can go in plenty of directions is always good. Some of us may only have a certain number of samples in us to generate, though. I don't believe there are single methods that apply to everyone, but I do happen to know your work, and I think that it would speak for itself.
Well said, Hal. Well, we have questions coming in, but you know, at this point, Hal, I have a bee video that we shot earlier this week, and we were actually able to harvest some honey out of the hive. Didn't take too much. I'm going to leave most of it for the bees this year.
Well, that's very good.
But
so let's see a bee movie then.
And there actually is someone out in our audience tonight that might eventually get a package of honey from us.
Honey?
Yes. Yes. So, in any event, just thought I'd throw that out there. You never know who's going to get a packet of honey. Right. Anyway, but so let me go ahead and I'm going to run that video, and you can see what we're up to in the hive. And well, we're going to talk about how honey is made. So if you didn't know that, it's one of those things you take for granted. You just know that bees make it, but you don't know how. So here we go. Everyone knows that bees make honey. We can see that through simple observation and basic logic. However, it is the how of making honey that we will talk about today. What the bees do is natural for them, and they are born knowing how to do it. For us, however, it will require a deep breath and a bit of science as we discover how nature produces one of its most perfect foods. Here we are opening our hives to begin a basic inspection. We try to do this every few weeks, but because of the blistering hot weather and the bees' schedule, we're a bit later than we like, but we're still within parameters. Bees store their processed honey in wax comb in the hive. Wax is produced as an excretion by the bees and mixed with a little honey to build these magnificent structures. A worker bee will literally work herself to death visiting flowers, collecting pollen, as well as a sugary fluid produced by the flowers called nectar. A worker bee only lives about 35 days. At the end of her days, her wings become so frayed that her usefulness is over and she is rejected by the colony. After visiting between 150 to 1,500 flowers, the honey stomach is full and almost equal in weight to the bee herself. The nectar at this point is nearly 80% water, with the remainder consisting primarily of complex sugars. The worker bees return to the hive laden with nectar and are often confused with other workers returning with pollen. They never do both on the same trip. Worker bees have hair-like baskets on their hind legs, and it is into these that they pack pollen grains while visiting flowers. These bees are easily identified because of the brightly colored orange and sometimes yellow pollen packed into their baskets. The pollen is sometimes referred to as bee bread, and when mixed with honey, forms the diet of the next cycle of brood being raised in the hive. As the female worker bee sucks nectar from flowers, it is stored in her special honey stomach. This is completely separate from her digestive stomach and is primarily used to transport as well as start the process that produces honey. A bee returning to the hive with a load of nectar is almost immediately greeted by the other workers ready to relieve her of her load. A mouth-to-mouth transfer is normally done between a field bee and one of the hive bees. Notice the extended tongues. The recipient bee processes the honey in its mouth and honey stomach by the addition of its enzymes that continue to break down the complex sugars in the nectar into the simple sugars that the bees find more digestible. This also gives honey its characteristic long shelf life. Edible honey has been found in 4,000-year-old Egyptian tombs. The final process is to dry this watery substance into the thick fluid that we associate with honey. This requires that fairly high temperatures be maintained, about 95 degrees, and that air be moved across the honeycombs. Bees control the movement of air by fanning their wings in a coordinated effort. The buzzing sound coming from a hive, even at night when there's no flying, is due to this forced evaporation process. And this goes on throughout the hive, from over top of the honeycomb all the way out to the front door. The end result is a thick, viscous honey with a 17% to 18% moisture content. And we're back. Let me look at everybody's microphone here. Yeah, we should all be okay. Good.
Yes, that was another great addition to the bee documentary.
I'm getting a fair repertoire of them, so we'll see how many of these we can do. We're getting ready probably to winterize the hive here soon and feed the bees for the season and all that sort of stuff. So we've got pollen packets and all that sort of stuff that we'll be putting in there. There's lots of stuff we can talk about, just bees alone. But, well, we might get back into the robotics stuff, too, this winter. Who knows where we'll go with all this stuff. There's all kinds of crazy things that we can talk about on this show. So, but our question queue, Dr. Hal, is starting to fill up. Would you like a question from the audience?
I'll take it.
All right. Well, Reverend Fnord, by the way, said thanks for the answer and the poetry. So I'd pass that along. I have a $3 love offering from Chris Klepek, and the question here is, what is your advice for someone attempting to see that which is normally or conventionally invisible?
A most interesting question, requiring that I give advice on how to see what is normally or conventionally invisible. Well, of course, the human eye does not normally detect it. So the eye is not calibrated to see whatever phantom is under discussion. But that is the crux of the matter. What is this invisible entity we are trying to see? If it is not there, then the eyes themselves may not be any use. And it might be recommended to close one's eyelids gently and to look through the apparent darkness inside the closed eyelids to see if something appears. As an occult problem, this is not normally recommended, because if it does become habitual to see things when the eyes are closed, then there is no relief from them at any time. On the other hand, there are many things that are present which we do not see because we are distracted by our consciousness. And I noted a long time ago, in the heady days of psychedelic drug experimentation, the curious phenomenon that when you put your glasses on, your hallucinations go into sharper focus. The only conclusion to draw from that is that they are not hallucinations, but actually there. And you are only seeing them now for the first time. You are seeing them now because what usually hides them is temporarily or momentarily phased out by the action of the drug, which promotes some sensory stimuli and suppresses others on a regular basis, a sinusoidal system powered by human circulation and its relation to the nervous system. To stand in front of a tree trunk and force oneself to look at it for a longer time than most people would devote to such a practice might make you start to see the patterns of the bark and the creatures that live in the cracks in between, and also that which your own mind adds. Many people have reported that at late night, when they enter the water closet and find themselves looking at a bathroom towel, tiny faces become visible in the towel. Again, these are not hallucinations. They are marks that are actually there, but being crafted into tangible symbols by the mind. So patience and the ability to continue to look are what I primarily advise. Beyond that, attempt to see what can be seen in the dark when the eyes are closed or where there is no light. Some people have reported seeing op art flashes, checkered patterns, and one that I have seen, which is particularly amusing, is the spaceship interiors drawn by the cartoonist Wallace Wood, which were always distinctive, of connected tubes, mouth-like apertures, radiant circles, and so forth. Since I was familiar with them and have often drawn them in my own comics, they obediently filed on the silent, lightless stage when my eyes were closed. Who knows what that would result in if you tried it. This year, for the first time, I entered a sensory deprivation tank. The same thing can happen in there, but you don't need a tank, only a tranquil moment and a moment of sheltering darkness, or in the brilliant vividness of day to confront a familiar object until it is no longer as familiar.
Wonderful. Dr.
Ever seen
Howie.
those Wallywood machinery things? I mean, in the comics, not inside your eyelids.
I've never experienced that.
Well, they became standard in the EC comics. Everybody liked them, so everybody started drawing them. But, it's like you have suspended spheres with tubes like vacuum cleaner hoses coming out of them and all sorts of outlandish stuff, which is futuristic scientific gear. Anyway, perhaps I can send you some examples. Let's go on with more questions.
Dr. Hal, I will mention one thing, though. I remember back in the day, we used to do something where we would press gently on our eyes and create, I believe they're called phosphenes.
Right. Well, I would refrain from pressing on the eyeballs too habitually, but all's fair in love and war. Mainly, in order to see things that one has not seen before, one must look longer and harder, and as in trying to remember something, silence the chatter from the conscious point of the mind and allow the greater wisdom of the unconscious mind to direct and refine your seeing process.
Wonderful. We have a $10 question from Reverend Numina.
Oh.
And I think it was inspired by the bee video. Why do bees bee?
Perhaps you mean which came first, the flower or the bee? Why are bees in their particular role as pollinators? Of course, you must know that bees are not the only pollinators, but they are the essential ones for the layer of plants that they require. The gymnosperms and angiosperms, plant forms like that existed ages ago, but it was not until the flowering plants began to appear that today's pollinators, already present in their ancestral form, adapted to exploiting the resources of the offered food of the nectar, which contains sugar, nature's perfect food. You showed the molecule in your presentation. First comes the opportunity, then comes the exploiter of the opportunity. First comes the reward, then come those who would seek the reward. So bees and all pollinators follow the opportunity that nature provides. After all, if they didn't, someone else would.
Wonderful, Hal. Well, our question queue is starting to build up. But at this juncture, I'd like to take this opportunity to bring in one of our musical guests. And this is, we kind of got this because our new co-producer's father performs here. He's one of the he's the drummer in the band, I do believe.
Oh yes, this is a great one.
Maruga Booker. But I'm going to play this video now. It's the first time we're playing Maruga Booker's music on the show, and we're glad to have him. But you're going to hear him a couple of times on the show. You'll hear him.
We're very happy to have it.
You're going to hear him again at the end of the show. But for now, here's our offering. They're one of my new favorite bands.
From the album World Jamdemic.
Cool band. Excellent piece of music. And we're going to hear more of them later in the show. It's Maruga Booker, very versatile, and you'll be hearing from him more frequently on this show. Thank you, Aaron. Reverend Pikachu.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, we've got a couple of questions here, Hal. Dr. Hal, are you familiar with the show Gravity Falls? And if so, please give your opinions, else expound as you see fit. And this is from Reverend Xenofact, and it is a $10 lover offering.
Oh dear, that's unfortunate because I have no working television and cannot watch any show. Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with the show, but even if the television were working, it isn't hooked up to the cable, since that was all taken away from me. So I'm hoping to have the television repaired, but we've been trying to do that for weeks. Me and my friend K-Rob have bought all sorts of additional equipment and added to it. But the TV is what they call a smart TV, which means it's smarter than me. And it expects me also to have an iPhone and all sorts of other things. It expects me to call on my iPhone and do other things. It's just impossible to get it to work. But as I say, even if it did work, I wouldn't be able to watch the show. My hope is that at some benign time in the future, I am able to catch up and watch many shows which are now on and are of interest and would be to me. I visited a friend of mine and she allowed me to watch all the episodes that we could of What We Do in the Shadows, which I enjoyed greatly. But since I am not familiar with Gravity Falls, I don't know if it is legitimate for me to accept your money. Maybe in this instance, we'd better not. I'm sorry not to be able to provide an answer, but I'm glad that there are good script writers putting out material which engages the mind and questions on the Ask Dr. Hal show.
Well, perhaps I may recommend a recitation in lieu of answering that question, because he did say, else expound as you see fit. So,
all right.
This sounds like a good spot for a recitation.
I'll see if I can do that. For me, out here on the left coast, the hour of 8 o'clock is about to strike. That is 10 o'clock to you, to the east of me. Well, here is a poem by Ruth Stone called Dissension Among Viewers, about TV shows, although written many years ago, before the TV show in question was an idea in the mind of God or even the infant who was later, as an adult, to create it. Annie Oakley, my darling, do you regret the handmade bullet turned to sugar jet, shot from guns, my fiery-hearted pet? Around 5, along the leafy avenues, when the smell of frozen steaks and instant stews causes the nose to twitch, do we get the news? No, sweetheart, no, brassy, trigger-hearted kid. We get you and the oat that flipped its lid, shot from some hack writer's loaded quid.
And Reverend Xenofact was very emphatic, keep the money.
Well, thank you. I should read reviews of Gravity Falls, and then maybe I'd be able to say something about it. So perhaps next time, just based on the reviews or on excerpts, if they're available online, the only way I might possibly see them. It all started when I got a Blu-ray player. Everything seemed to go haywire. The TV didn't like the Blu-ray player and died. The TV is irreplaceable. A TV is they don't make the simpler TV that you can just take and plug in and turn it on. You have to go through protocols which are completely beyond my understanding. But I'm going to get more expert help in the weeks ahead. I'll be able to watch my own collection at any rate. That's my hope at any rate.
Well, very good. We were actually planning on coming out and giving you some technical assistance, but we chickened out. So we'll see you in May, I think.
All right. Well, I hope that the TV is still there by May. You see, my roommate is impatient with it sitting there and not doing anything and taking up space in our vastly crowded living space. But we don't know. We'll see.
I see. If only I could telepresence over to San Francisco.
Well, as I say, it may be possible to just get someone vastly more used to this stuff than I, although I have to say the last time he expressed bafflement with it too. And K-Rob, who helps me with most things and with all the electronics on the live show, said he'd gone as far with it as was possible. Anyway, this is not about that. So let's have another question.
Well, anyway. By the way, Reverend Chuck Canuck said thank you for your thoughts, Dr. Hal.
I hope it was helpful. Make that demo real, to use archaic terminology.
I have a question here from Reverend Gofflin.
Great.
And you know what?
Heard from her for a while.
Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to use that as a teaser, because when we come back, we're going to read that question from Reverend Gofflin. Audience, I am still waiting for our queue to fill up with questions. We definitely have room in the show. If you can, did I just freeze? Looks like
no, but I heard a sound that sounded almost like
hold tight for just a minute. My screen froze over here.
Now I'm being bombarded with an echo of everything I say.
All right. Hal, I'm going to drop out for just a minute, and I'm going to be right.
Aloft or sinking as the soft wind lives or dies, and full-grown lambs loud bleat from hilly bourne. Hedge crickets sing now with treble soft, the redbreast warbles from the garden croft, and gathering swallows twitter in the skies. Well, I understand we are back. Is this so?
We are back. Yeah, sorry about that, folks. All of a sudden, my camera froze, and I still had microphone, so at least I was able to say, I'll be right back. So that was a quick...
Yes, I heard a ping, somewhat like when ice cracks in a thaw or something like that. And immediately, I started to hear my own voice coming at me as the delayed echo, which we've had before in preparation. So at least we have surmounted that particular obstacle, eh?
That was exciting. Let me bring up the Ko-fi screen again. I do have one here from Reverend Adorno that came to us through.
Did my recitation come through, or was it frozen?
No, because when I dropped my system, I had to drop Twitch.
Oh, too bad.
So yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah, I'm the connector between the systems, so.
Oh well.
But luckily we've got a very fast computer here, so we were able to turn that around in about I'd say about 2 minutes. So not bad, not bad. As far as disasters go, that was not a bad disaster. But while I go ahead and bring Ko-fi back up, I have a $15 question here from Reverend Adorno, and we have not forgotten you, Reverend Gofflin. But Dr. Hal, what music do you often listen to as you are working, and have you found any new music that has piqued your interest?
Well, most interesting. When I worked, I preferred to have the television on, and thus I could play my collection, and I would be able, while looking at the page I was working on and not at the screen, to know from the soundtrack, which I'm also familiar with, what was going on. Essentially, I could watch the television without looking at it. This I can't do anymore. But the Blu-ray player will play discs. And that's all I'll say about that. But I usually like listening to Baroque music. I'm particularly fond of the music of Henry Purcell, but I've recently started playing on my podcast show music from Black bands of the 1920s and early 30s, Fiddlin' John Carson and others. One is always discovering new things. Now, as far as contemporary people, I cannot but recommend The Caretaker, whose subterranean repackaging of obsolete music is a delight to the ear. These discs were provided for me by Right Reverend Mother Dr. Miller, and I don't know where she got them, but anywhere you can get something is good. I like British dance bands of the 1930s, before the Second World War. I listened to those. I like Hot Women, the album by R. Crumb, of music from the torrid regions of the world, performed by women singers, now obscure to today's capitalist music stream. And I'm quite fond of the music of Hal Roach comedies and Laurel and Hardy films. The composing credit often goes to T. Marvin Hatley, but I don't know if he's the actual person we should thank, being only the musical director at Roach Films. But there is a Dutch group called the Bohunks Orchestra, all modern musicians, who play these tunes and play them well. And I feature this on my show too, when the equipment is working. My last show, none of the equipment was working, and I spent a nightmarish 3 hours without the ability to play music, except barely on the edges of things. We are at the mercy of our equipment. If it doesn't work, we don't work. Finally, I believe that the best music composed by composers and played by orchestras does not come from the concert hall in our time, but did come from Hollywood composers who, without artistic pretension, had to connect to an audience viscerally. In particular, Bernard Herrmann, I love and enjoy listening to at any time. And of course, when it is possible, I feature that composer's work on my show too. Let's throw in Robin Coomer's last band, Loop Station. That band is not together, but the discs are out of this world, and one would never get tired of listening to him. She's a wonderful singer, and it's a pity that band doesn't exist, but she has a new one, as we will certainly see evidence of later in the program.
Actually, yes, coming up right after our next segment, actually, and so let's move it forward because we have a monster movie moment coming up next. I think now would be a good time to bring that in. I do want to remind the audience we operate on your questions. The queue is getting late again, so please get your questions into Dr. Hal. $1, $2 love offerings. You don't need to break the bank. Just get us some questions. And we'll move smartly forward. Dr. Hal, here is our first monster movie moment.
This is a story of long, long ago, when the world was just beginning. Prehistory, always a fascinating thought, whether scientific or
Okay, looks like everybody's microphone is on.
Well, that's good. Remember to watch the fully available version from Kino Lorber and not the cut down American version. There are more thrills on that one. So what have we got going now?
Well, let me see. We promised the question from Reverend Gofflin, and here it comes. Okinawan martial artist master Gishin Funakashi famously wrote, "First know thyself, then know others. If what I know about others is what the vast majority of them are idiots. What does that say about myself?" Shall I repeat that?
No, I believe I understand it. One must know one's self before one tries to know others. Well, if the vast majority of others are idiots, it seems that you're getting kind of accurate, because by definition, the average man is pretty damn dumb, as Ivan Stang has said, and that by definition, half of everyone is dumber than that. Intelligence is a gift that has been bestowed upon you, but you can increase it, not necessarily by going to others, but this above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day. Thou canst not yet be false to any man. But, of course, this was also the Socratic admonition to know yourself. And a person who we call Jesus also said the same thing. So there must be something in it. It is difficult to put aside the delusions, some of them perhaps comforting ones, which one has about one's self, but one must know one's self in every aspect. And there, once one does, it is possible to be more forgiving of others for obstinacy and idiocy that they may generally exhibit, but there may be special areas in which they excel and have something valuable to tell you. You will never find it out if you condemn them for the idiocy before you get to that special treasure concealed. As it is said, the toad, ugly and venomous, carries yet a precious jewel in his head. And I'll add, Reverend Gofflin is producing sublime entertainment for all the others. So although idiots they may be less so after they come in contact with her art, which the artist always hopes, wishing to be not single in his or her viewpoint, but joined in it by others.
Very good. Dr. Hal, I have a question here from the Royal American Temple of the Holy Order of Lower Evolution, otherwise known as Rat Hole.
Oh, those are great guys and fellow travelers of us. They're, of course, a division of the Church of the Subgenius, as are we.
Indeed, they are, and a lovely group of folks that it is. But this is from them, and it is a $6 love offering. By the way, I meant to mention the previous question from Reverend Gofflin was a $9 love offering.
Oh, that's good. Just to jump back a bit, none of the recitation that I did while you were searching to reconnect was heard. So essentially that one is still in readiness if I need to use it and won't be seen as repeating myself.
I don't believe so. So I believe we'd love to hear it in its entirety.
All right, just asking. So let's get back to the present moment.
Very good. But in any event, this is from our friends at the Rat Hole. Dr. Hal, what was the single most slack-filled moment in your life that you can remember? Statute of limitations applied. Praise Bob.
Oh, well, I can go back to the ones which the statute of limitations precludes. The most slack-filled moment. Well, it's hard to say. One person's slack is another person's tension, but perhaps after I had successfully written a play, which, see, I worked with a theater group, and we were always trying to get this one critic to give us a good review. This was an old lady in Tucson, Arizona, whose word in the critical establishment there was law. And she'd occasionally say something nice about our productions in a review, but then she'd say something like, "Then came the second act," and not be as kind. But in the case of my show, she liked the whole damn thing. She praised me, she praised it, she praised the performers. It was finally a glowing review. Curiously enough, right after that, our theater group was destroyed, taken over by a 1970s feminist revolution, and all males, I being one, were no longer welcome there. But the moment that the whole audience was applauding this thing, and I was sitting there with the girl I liked by my side, I got up to take a bow. So this is certainly an ego gratifying moment. But are those slackful? I don't know. In slack, I think characteristically, we need to feel relief and pleasure. If one does something that one has wanted to do for a long time and finds it equal to what one thinks it should be like, that moment is certainly at the peak of the slack wave. But I should say in a cautionary way, the only 100% slackful person was J.R. Bob Dobbs, the saint of sales. Bob, instinctively being an epoch or a chosen one, knew how to surf the luck plane. And so we must all do in imitation of Dobbs. However, Dobbs could do it in a business suit and not get wet, like Mr. Ed in the TV show when they put Mr. Ed on a surfboard. Oh yes, Mr. Ed jumped the shark long before Fonzie. So the rest of us fall off the board and get tumbled and ground on the beach. The thing is to get back up on the board and continue to surf the luck plane. Most pinks don't even know or suspect that there is a luck plane. They end up harboring a sort of put upon feeling that the world is against them. It is only to the extent that one does not resist and simultaneously ignore it. And thank you for your question. Keep doing your good work.
Well, Dr. Hal, you mentioned Robin Coomer earlier, and we have her here with Shakewell. Shakewell.
Yes.
And again, we've got great music on this show. This song blew me away. I love this song. This is a really good piece. So I'd like to share that.
I hope you'll all like it too. It was kind of her to provide it for us.
Yeah, we're glad to be sharing it with the audience tonight. So let me go ahead and play that for everyone.
Just like blood to hide the evidence spatter on your white bearskin rug. You're floating on a fallacy. You think you're so high class that you can take all your riches and shove them up your glorious past. All you wanted was a holy land. All you needed was a few good men. All you wanted was a wild weekend.
Yes, Reverend Adorno, I do believe they have a band camp. I'll have to look that up for you, but look up Robin Coomer, Coomer.
Or look up Shake Well. They have a
Shake Well.
concert coming up on Thursday, which I'm looking forward to going to. And Eric McFadden, who you saw there, who's one of those wonderful people who can just pick up any instrument and play it, will prominently feature in both bands on that night.
Yeah, that's I love that song. It's a great song.
Yeah,
we
all
have
their songs are good. That Pat McDonald's songbook is what they specialize in. Shake Well, that is, and Robin channels Patsy McDonald when she performs.
Indeed, she does. Channels her quite well, I'm sure. But yeah, it's we've always get like really good musical acts for the show, but in particular tonight is especially really good stuff. So
well, let's hope we continue to do it.
Now I have a very simple question here, but perhaps one with a lot of meaning. This is a $9 question, and it's from Mary Ann. And what is your favorite animal?
Most interesting. Well, you know, questions tendered to the Ask Dr. Hal show usually, at least at one point, hit this particular framework where I, Dr. Howell, am asked to prioritize in the best and worst, the 10 best, the 10 worst. What is at the pinnacle? What is at the bottom? This David Letterman-esque thing. But my approach is generally to not to focus on a particular thing at the exclusion of everything else, but to enjoy as many other things as possible. That being said, there is an animal which I seem to like. Why? Because in idle moments, I find myself drawing it on envelopes and pieces of newspaper and so on. And it is one which intrigues me. It is the Ornithischian thyreophoran dinosaur known as Stegosaurus and all its relatives, including the Tuogiangosaurus, Mirajagaya, the Wuherasaurus, the newly discovered giant Spinosaurus, an animal so bizarre it looks as if it escaped from a Japanese monster movie, and all the relatives of this clade, which died out at the end of the Jurassic period, everywhere on Earth except on an island, which is now called India, and is no more an island. That island was moving slowly through the ocean and eventually reached the Asian subcontinent, and is still moving since all geological incidents take place in super slow motion. As it pushes against the place where it landed, it is causing the earth to buckle and rise. In fact, it's causing the Himalaya mountains, which are still growing under the impact of the Indian subcontinent. On the Indian subcontinent, not touching other parts of the Mesozoic world, stegosaurs did flourish until the early Cretaceous, when India made its landfall. At that time, they gracefully gave way to other armored dinosaurs of the thyreophoran clade. Thyreophora is a word which means shield bearer. And certainly the Stegosaurus is known for its array of shields. The dorsal plates, for some reason, I find this incredibly lovable and ornate. And so did other stegosaurs. You see, the point of all these doodads and ornamentation on dinosaurs and everything else is to look cool. That is the most evolutionary viable thing a species can do, because if you look really cool, you will succeed in getting a female to mate with you, and thus you can pass your DNA on to the next generation. The more exotically decorated, the better your chances are. Now, the dorsal plates and the caudal array, called thagomizers, supposedly because one caveman named Thag got a little too close. Nonetheless, this is a term now used by scientists. All of these things may have an ex-aptive function, meaning a separate function which came along besides looking cool. And this would be defensive. But for the most part, it's part of nature's wonderful prodigy of invention in decorating and creating fantastic creatures. And not rationally, but viscerally, ever since I was a small child, I have loved this creature. And I find that I still do, and am actually able to answer the question.
I have a question here from Dr. Penny, and it is a $15 love offering. And
well, that's good.
What is the purpose of seraphim?
Well, they are a sort of praetorian guard of the angelic order. At last comes to their sight, something like that, a globe of circular light that with long beams the shamefaced knight arrayed, the helmed cherubim and sworded seraphim are seen in glittering ranks with wings displayed, harping in loud and solemn choir with unexpressive notes to welcome heaven's newborn heir. That is to say, some people saw at the birth of Jesus, according to the story, huge shadowy figures of these beings perched in the sky above the Bethlehem birthplace. This has been called a stable. Actually, it was in a cave, but maybe, who knows, maybe the stable was built as a sort of a roof or porch out from the opening of the cave. At any rate, this is where the sighting of these armored beings occurred. And the poet Bilton says they carried swords. Why? Perhaps to keep back the legions of Satan. Why would this be necessary? Because they're here. The devils are bound to earth below the orbit of the moon. That is why they are sometimes called sublunary beings. But in this case, they weren't allowed to work their mischief according to that story. So the seraphim are part of those strange Miltonic angelic orders who are armed and have been ever since the revolt in heaven, when more than 2/3 of the angels had to leave and were condemned to live in hell or on the earth below the orbit of the moon. Thank you for such an esoteric question, to which an esoteric answer is conceivably not out of order.
Well, Dr. Hal, I think this might be a grand opportunity to bring in our second monster movie moment.
That's very good. Let's go back to the concept of prehistory for a moment.
And it is on its way.
Risked her life to follow Tumak of the Rock People.
Tumescent, they called him.
Strong as the beasts he fought for survival.
Bigger, it appears.
See the fascinating, strange, and fearful creatures who roamed and ruled the earth 1,000,000 BC.
And there were many of them. That seems to echo the famous Chinese curse of "May you live in interesting times." Of course, our own times are inadvertently interesting unto us at present.
We haven't tried to sacrifice a virgin to a volcano yet, but perhaps that's
no,
somewhere
just
in our
to
future.
Many unmasked individuals.
Well, let me see here, Dr. Hal. I have a question here from Dr. Wolfgang Amadeus Gotterdamerung. And this is a $15 love offering.
Holy guacamole.
And did gremlins exist before airplanes? Did they bug guys in hot air balloons?
Most interesting, Reverend Goddard Dameron.
Greetings, Dr. Howell from...
I apologize for that. Sorry about that.
Oh, I already answered that one.
Unexpected.
The thing about it is that apparently there were, according to tradition, spirits or gods that used to share this earth with man as with a friend, as Coleridge wrote. And these included representation.
I'm not sure how.
Dwarfs. With water, we have undines, sylphs, naiads. With air, we have a number of airish beings, including the jinn that the Islamic world is familiar with. And fire, of course, or energy in a free state, is the realm of salamanders, beings who live in the fire and who whisper sinful secrets to philosophers. However, the philosophers have to get very near the fire because this fire is the closest to our world, frigid and frozen to them, that they can achieve. But now let us speak of gremlins, which you are asking about. Did gremlins bother early pioneers who made balloon ascensions? One thing to remember is that they went very high for their own time, but not for our time. They didn't go up into the upper realms of the atmosphere where breathing is hard, and it would not have gone well for them had they done so as aeronauts in a device which would have expanded too much, or as humans who tried to breathe when there wasn't enough air to breathe. But it has long been speculated that all realms, earth, air, fire, and water, are occupied by beings, and Arthur Conan Doyle, the inventor of Sherlock Holmes, also postulated that perhaps up in the upper atmosphere layers, there were creatures which, though light and tenuous, might be likened unto the deep sea creatures of the abyssal realm, and even perhaps threaten pilots who come up but don't go down. Something like a giant squid of the upper air was postulated by Mr. Doyle. But let us focus more narrowly on the answer to the question, where do gremlins come from? Gremlins appear during World War II. They were created by Roald Dahl, the British writer. He wrote a story about gremlins because they were cited by pilots as the little imps that made airplanes break up in flight. That is, if something went wrong with an aircraft in flight, according to the inner lore of pilots, it was the gremlins who did it. And by referring to gremlins, other flyers would know what was meant. The story about gremlins appeared in the Saturday Evening Post. At this time, it created a sensation, and Walt Disney announced that the Disney Studios were going to make a cartoon about these lovable but mischievous and dangerous gremlins. And so other animation studios rushed into the gap to make their cartoon movie about gremlins dwelling in the air. Well, as it happened, Walt Disney shelved this idea and never made the Gremlins movie, but other studios brought theirs to completion. In particular, Warner Brothers with their cartoon Falling Hair, in which the magical, undefeatable creature Bugs Bunny is actually put through hell by a gremlin who forces his bomb-laden plane to take off. And the same cartoonist, who I happen to know personally, Bob Clampett, also made a cartoon where gremlins invade a plane piloted by Adolf Hitler himself. After all, if only the pure Nazi Superman is pure enough to bomb Russia, the purest of all is Hitler, so he has to pilot the plane. In this most enjoyable cartoon, the wee gremlins, who are actually caricatures of the Warner Brothers animation department, torment Hitler, put tacks on his chair, sew up his airplane, and eventually cause him to crash into the ground and be buried by the airplane that falls on top of him. I cannot recommend this cartoon too much. It's called Russian Rhapsody. The other cartoon with Bugs Bunny and the gremlin is called Falling Hair. But after the 1940s, gremlins became more known because of a Twilight Zone episode in which William Shatner freaks out by seeing a mysterious aerial being, a gremlin, on the wing of the passenger plane that he's traveling in. I think most people know about this episode, and it was done again in the Twilight Zone movie, which was directed by George Miller, the director of The Road Warrior and other exciting action pictures. So the gremlin on the wing or the gremlin in the air still lives in human consciousness. It would be ironic if, in addition to being created to entertain the public, it turned out that they were actually there. Should I do a recitation because of that one, or how are we doing for time?
Well, actually, Hal, we're doing okay for time, but I'll tell you what, I have Dr. Billy has a question for us, a video question, and we're going to play that a little earlier. Oops, we were going to play that a little earlier in the show, but we swapped some things around, so I'm going to play that now for you. So here comes Dr. Billy's.
Well, Dr. Billy is a great friend of the show.
And here is his video question.
Hi, Dr. Hal. This is probably more of a request than a question, but I was wondering if you could do a reading of Yevtushenko's poem, Humor. Thanks a lot.
Yes, I can do that, Dr. Billy. However, my reading, of course, is a translation of this poem, which was written in Russian. It may not be the translation that you are familiar with, but it's an interesting and a profound poem anyway. So let me get at it. This is translated by George Reevy. It's a fairly good translation. Humor by Yevtushenko. Tsars, kings, emperors, sovereigns of all the earth have commanded many a parade, but they could not command humor. When Aesop the tramp came visiting the palaces of eminent personages, ensconced in sleek comfort all day, they struck him as paupers. In houses where hypocrites have left the smear of their puny feet, there Haja Nasser ed-Din, with his jests, swept clean all meanness like a board of chessmen. They tried to commission humor, but humor is not to be bought. They tried to murder humor, but humor thumbed his nose at them. It's hard to fight humor. They executed him time and again. His hacked off head was stuck on the point of a pike. But as soon as the mummer's pipes began their gripping tale, humor defiantly cried, "I'm back, I'm here," and started to foot a dance. In an overcoat, shabby and short, with eyes cast down and a mask of repentance, he, a political criminal, now under arrest, walked to his execution. He appeared to submit in every way, accepting the life beyond, but of a sudden he wriggled out of his coat and, waving his hand, did a bolt. Humor was shoved into cells, but much good that did. Humor went straight through prison bars and walls of stone, coughing from the lungs like any man in the ranks. He marched singing a popular ditty, rifle in hand, upon the Winter Palace. He's accustomed to frowning looks, but they do him no harm. And humor at times with humor glances at himself. He's ever present, nimble and quick. He'll slip through anything, through everyone. So glory be to humor. He is a valiant man. Thank you for your request.
Well, Dr. Hal, this seems like a good time to go to our third monster movie moment. We usually just do two, but this week we have three.
Well, we're featuring the subject of prehistory in these, so let's go ahead.
And this one's very special, so moving right along, here it comes.
The prehistoric world of 1,000,000 years ago.
1,000,000 years BC.
The perennial problem of droughts and floods.
1,000,000 years BC. Primitive man and monstrous beasts fought each other to inherit the earth.
It was a near thing.
Not since time began has the primitive scene been captured for the screen with such imaginative realism.
But it is difficult to tell.
Behold man 1,000,000 years BC.
Getting his rocks
Introducing the
in
fabulous
place.
Raquel Welch, the sensational star discovery of this or any other year, big and strong as the beasts he fought for survival. Nupondi the wild one, whom no man could resist. See the fascinating, strange, and fearful creatures who roamed and ruled the earth 1,000,000 years BC.
The police department.
Brontosaurus, a moving mountain of flesh and bone.
Would you move it somewhere else,
The
please?
pterodactyl, a flying reptile with giant teeth.
Wings.
The flesh-eating Allosaurus. You will share the unending thrills and excitement of a world of primitive wonders, of primeval terror and savagery.
And
You will
detergent.
indeed live in another world, in another time, as the centuries fall back.
Oh
to
my
reveal the
God,
earth
look at
1,000,000
that.
years BC.
The shock is too much. Well, we thank WFLS TV for that educational presentation. And I don't know if we've exhausted the subject of prehistory, but it was the subject of our monster movie moments tonight.
And what a wonderful trilogy that was.
Yes.
We have another question here in the queue from Reverend Fnord again, and it is a $9 question.
Oh, very good.
And let me open this one up. It says, the first movie that really frightened me was The Birds. I watched it at my grandmother's house as a young child. What was the first movie that brought you a visceral reaction, and where were you?
Well, this is something that I only vaguely remember, but I was never allowed to forget the incident. It was when I was a child watching The Wizard of Oz in a movie theater, and when Margaret Hamilton came on the screen, they say I hid under my seat. I remember being scared by her, but not doing that. But it seems that that is the answer you're looking for. Although people may not think she's particularly scary today, I kind of see her as like the Fox News audience, intractable, inflexible, and willing to act viciously in an extended way. If only a tornado would blow away all of those troublesome people. But then one must not think such uncharitable thoughts. Anyway, that answer is short. So should I put a recitation in, or how are we doing for time?
Hal, our time is okay. If you'd like to do a recitation, I'm sure the audience would appreciate that.
Very good. The witch with eyes of amber. I met a witch with amber eyes who softly sang a scarlet rune, shifting to an icy laughter, like the laughter of the moon. Red as a wanton's was her mouth, and fair the breast she bade me take, with a word that clove and clung, burning like a furnace flake. But from that bright uplifted bosom, when I touched it with my hand, came the many-needled coldness of a glacier-taken land. And lo, the witch with eyes of amber vanished like a blown-out flame, leaving but a lichen-eaten stone that bore a blotted name. Clark Ashton Smith.
Oh, you read something else recently by Clark Ashton Smith. It was
Oh yeah, I often do.
Quite wonderful. Tell us a little bit about that real quick, Hal.
What?
Where can the audience find that recording of you reading the Garden of Adamfa by Clark Ashton Smith?
Well, it's I did it for Pseudopod. I did it for escape artists, and they are trying to pay me, I believe, or at least my contact is trying to pay me. Unfortunately, they tried to do it with PayPal, which I never use, and if you are paid that way, you can't get the money out. You have to exchange it for something, not the way I choose to be paid. I prefer an unhackable check in the mail. It turns out that in the past, when I've used PayPal, hackers have gotten into my bank account. It's all very tedious, but I didn't ask for it and I didn't want it. But that's okay. Thanks to Pontius Pressure, I did manage to do a good recording of the story, The Garden of Adamfa, which takes place, oh, look, there it is, in the story cycle about the far future final continent of Zofik near the end of Earth's life, where the king, Adamfa, hired the evil sorcerer, Dwerialas, to create a hideous garden based on human victims, and what transpired because of it. Is it true that we are offering this recording as a premium here on the show? Actually, I need to see if that's all right with Pseudopod. They sent me many contracts, but I don't believe I read them still. If we can, I think we'll do that.
It is a very good possibility.
Well, I hope so. That would make a good premium to give away on our show. And as long as I continue with my weekly Radio Valencia podcasts, I hope to feature it on that program as well.
Well, and we might be looking at getting some stickers too.
Wow.
Ask
stickers.
Dr. Hal stickers. All the kids love stickers. You know, gotta
hope
get
that they don't abruptly stop loving them when they realize they're about us, but maybe not. So we'll have to see.
Maybe they can use them for something else, you know, Band-Aids or something. Close gaping wounds.
Mm-hmm.
In any event, I have a couple more questions here for you, but I think we are coming to the bottom of our queue here. But I have another question from Reverend Gofflin. This is a $3 question. And of the films of Carol Zeman, which is your favorite?
Well, up until quite recently, I would have said the An Invention for Destruction, to translate it from the Czech title, known in the English-speaking world as The Fabulous World of Jules Verne. If you want to see this movie in English, you should search it out from that title. It contains many wonderful things. The only American version used to have an inane interpolated prologue featuring Hugh Downs holding a model of an atomic submarine, who would say, "This is Hugh Downs, and this is one of our atomic submarines." And even as a child, I would say, "No, it isn't. That thing's only about 3 feet long." Still, it's simply because they always tried to Americanize any film that they got from foreigners, thinking American audiences were too dumb to be interested otherwise. The wonderful Russian cartoon, The Snow Queen, based on Hans Christian Andersen's story of the same name, which certainly should be seen, came out in a bilious American production with songs jammed into it by Tommy Kirk and Sandra Dee. But it was not a musical. However, it was thought that any cartoon, like Disney's, had to be a musical. And so in order to produce the effect of a musical, they would speed up and slow down certain parts of the movie. It was a terrible thing to do to that movie. And worse than that, they put a prologue in the front of it with Art Linkletter, if you remember who that was, and a bunch of kids where he interviewed them and asked them things like, "Did mommy fix your hair?" with a Christmas tree prominently in the background. After all, since the movie was about snow, it must be a Christmas movie, and therefore it came out at Christmas time when my sister and I were able to go to the theater and see it. Still, in spite of all this crap that America shoveled on top of it, The Snow Queen, for the breathtaking and beautiful animation, is worth seeing if you can stomach the saccharine songs that are also shoehorned into it. I seem to have ventured a little bit, as I sometimes do, from the question. Could you remind me of the question? It wasn't about the Snow Queen, was it?
No, Hal, it was about your favorite of the Carol Zeman
all right.
movies.
My favorite Carol Zeman movie. You might think it would be A Journey to the Primeval Age, where the kids on a raft go down the river of time further and further into the past and see the prehistoric creatures. I like that one a lot. I'm also very fond of his Baron Munchausen film called Baron Prasil. I have that. However, it's in Czech, and I'm not able to watch it because on my TV it's just swirls of mud, and I can't listen to a Czechoslovakian dialogue track. There's another one that he did called On the Comet, which is actually the same plot as the movie Valley of the Dragons, which I mentioned earlier on the show. The Jules Verne novel, Off on a Comet, is about how a comet comes close to the Earth and almost touches it, and its gravity draws Hector Servadac, who's about to fight a duel with his enemy, and his enemy onto its surface. This comet passes the Earth every once in a great while and is also loaded with prehistoric creatures, as it is in Zeman's version. In his film, it turns out you can make dinosaurs go away by banging pots and pans. So the military, that of them who were transferred to the comet, throw away all their cannons and rifles and go to war against gigantic prehistoric monsters by beating pots and pans. Oh, it's a very entertaining movie. Still, my favorite one is An Invention for Destruction, also called The Fabulous World of Jules Verne, in which the entire movie is made to imitate a Victorian steel engraving with tiny lines delineating everything. Tiny lines on the characters' costumes, tiny lines on the ships and flying machines and submarines which they inhabit, and tiny lines on the giant octopus and the other monsters of the deep shown in the film. None of Zeman's films move with the attention span deficit speed of an American film and may be closed to the enjoyment of American audiences, but the one that's the least likely to do that is An Invention for Destruction, also known as The Fabulous World of Jules Verne.
Wonderful, Hal.
I wonder about Gofflin. What's her favorite? We should ask her. She may know of others that we don't.
She made a comment when you mentioned one of them early on, and she said, that is my favorite.
But it wasn't an invention for destruction.
Which one was it, Reverend Gofflin? Was it Invention for Destruction? Yes. That's what she said.
Well, I think all in all, that one is the most cohesive. It certainly makes wonderful video wallpaper.
It's a beautiful movie. I have one last question in the queue. Actually, let me double check that statement. I don't want to leave anybody behind tonight. And drum roll, please. Let me just scroll down here. Nope, I appear to be correct. If I am wrong, however, please shout out. But this one is from Dr. Wolfgang Amadeus Gotthardammerung, and it is for $21 love offering.
Holy cahooses.
And it is, do you have a preference between werewolves, four-legged, and wolfmen, bipedal? And is there any difference beside the obvious?
Well, I have made a study of the werewolf phenomenon, and I've done the best I could, even though sometimes when I order a rare book about werewolves, they send me a book about something else. This is unfortunate, but the University of Chicago Press only allows you to order academic books by putting a number down instead of the title of the book. So if they get the number wrong, you get the wrong book. Fortunately, the book I received instead of the werewolf book was most interesting, about the travels of the Arabian seafarer Ibn Battuta, which I have discussed in the past. He saw the Hindu rope trick, the Indian rope trick performed in the Middle Ages, which should shut up people who say, oh, that's just all coercive Western colonialism. There is no Hindu rope trick. Well, then how come it was seen in the Middle Ages by Ibn Battuta? He also saw, when voyaging on the ship, the captain called his attention to the giant rock who they were afraid was going to sink the ship. Fortunately, the rock went in the other way, but it sure was big. However, the story of the werewolf is that the werewolf is an unnatural condition brought about by sorcery, in which the person who is so cursed or appointed bears, in periods of transformation, the worst aspect of human together with the worst aspect of wolf. So the idea presented in contemporary fiction and movies like Twilight, where the werewolf is just wild and free and just longs to... No, it's not like that. The werewolf is a bloodthirsty, slavering beast who wishes to do as much harm as possible. We grew up, or some of us did, with the Lon Chaney Jr. werewolf in the Universal monster movie cycle, starting with The Wolf Man, where Lon Chaney Jr., it was easier to believe he would turn into a werewolf when bitten by Bela Lugosi than it was to believe that he was the son of Claude Rains, a very unlikely son for Claude Rains. But the Wolfman, like Frankenstein, continued into other movies. In particular, we like it in House of Dracula, where he comes and tells the scientist protagonist of the movie, Doc, I'm about to change into a werewolf. You got to operate on me, do something. He said, oh, my boy, this is just an illusion, and so forth and so on. That's no help. And he bursts out and he goes to the local jail, has himself put in the jail. And then the police inspector, Lionel Atwill, it's always Lionel Atwill, calls the doc and his hunchbacked nurse friend in to observe Larry Talbot in the jail. And again, the doctor says, now, my boy, it's just a hallucination. Many people think they turn into wolves. And then right in front of them all, he turns into the slavering wolfman monster that we all know and perhaps love. Anyway, some werewolves were depicted as a biped. But is this in a stage of lycanthropic transformation? The movies make you think that all at once he turns into this beast or being. Perhaps that's the way it works, but I doubt it, since you would need the energy of a star in order to produce such a transformation on an atomic or molecular level in all its complexity. In fact, it's more likely that as the moon waxes, the transformation becomes more and more apparent until finally at the full of the moon, you have full werewolf. And then as the moon wanes, the lycanthropic features all disappear, all except the characteristic ones, which according to the werewolf books are the first and second finger are of equal lengths, and the eyebrows meet over the nose in a characteristic unibrow. So you can have both werewolves. You can have the one that completely changes into a wolf, as was done by one of the more famous historical werewolves, Stubbe Peter. Stubbe Peter was hideously tortured to death in the Middle Ages. Well, that's what they would do when you departed from Christianity, and it was said that Stubbe Peter had invoked demonic spirits in order to effect his transformation. So whatever they did, they tore him to pieces while still alive and so forth. They did all sorts of unpleasant things. Being a werewolf is never considered socially acceptable, but the werewolf also does damage on its own. If you like the humanoid werewolf, you may consider it a stage of lycanthropy, or you may consider it as far as some get. Are all werewolves alike, or do they vary, even as the individuals who comprise their ranks vary as humans? It seems more reasonable to believe this. Perhaps someday the University of Chicago Press will send me the newest scholarly book on werewolves, which I have tried to order, but have been frustrated in the doing of that.
Well, Dr. Hal, that was our last question for the evening.
Last question.
Last question.
Yes.
So, do you have a closing recitation for us this evening?
Yes, I do, but I wonder if I should do the one which I did before, which was blanked out. I'm confused as to whether any of that one got out.
I think a little bit went out.
Well, should I do that one or should I do another one?
I think you should do that one in case we left anybody hanging.
All right. Well, as I said before, but was not heard saying, we're ending summer and beginning autumn. And so I will say the Hymn to Autumn by John Keats. You know, the poet John Keats died when very young, only 25 years old. And he always got bad reviews because they said, who is this guy? He's acting like Shakespeare. He's just he's not even. And now I'm going to say the poem Hymn to Autumn by John Keats. Season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun, conspiring with him how to load and bless with fruits the vines that round the thatch eaves run, to bend with apples the mossed cottage trees, and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core, to swell the gourd and plump the hazel shell with a sweet kernel, to set budding more and still more later flowers for the bees, until they think warm days can never cease, for summer hath o'erbrimmed their clammy cells. Who hath not seen thee oft amidst thy store? Sometime whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor, thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind, or on a half-reaped furrow, sound asleep, drowsed by the fume of poppies, whilst thy hook spares the next swathe and all its twined flowers. And sometime, like a gleaner, thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook, or by a cider press, with patient look thou watchest the last oozings, hours by hours. Where are the songs of spring? Aye, where are they? Ask not for them. Thou hast thy music too, where borrowed clouds bloom the soft dying day and touch the stubble fields with rosy hue. Then in a wailful choir the small gnats mourn among the river sallows, borne aloft or sinking, as the soft wind lives or dies, and full-grown lambs loud bleat from hilly bourne. Hedge crickets sing. Now, with treble soft, the redbreast whistles from the garden croft, and gathering swallows twitter in the skies.
That was beautiful, Hal. So I guess it's time to say goodnight.
To all our company.
And ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming. And we will be in the after show chat if you'd like to join us. And
that's right.
And we will see you all next month. So good night.
Good night, and thanks for watching.
Feeling kinda tired, a little rough around the edges. I can't see too clear without my glasses. Used to be a young man with a heart full of dreams. Well, there wasn't nothing I couldn't do, or so it seemed. And I've been looking just for you all of my life. Searching high and low through the double edged stripe. Here I stand with my hands open wide. Little rough around here.